I'm still reeling from what went down last Saturday night, and I need to vent because I'm furious, confused, and my mind is spinning from the chaos that ensued. Seriously, what just happened to my world? I've been with Connor for about 8 months, and things were generally solid. He's 26, and we connected through mutual friends at a summer cookout last year. It's been typical relationship stuff, you know. We hang out a few times a week. He's met my family, I've met his. We do cute couple things like bowling, binge-watching shows, and hitting up local markets on weekends. But then things took a bizarre turn. Connor's always been super into social media, which I didn't think was a big deal until last weekend. He's constantly posting on Instagram, multiple stories daily, tagging every place and person, documenting every bite he eats and every gym session. I'm more of a low-key scroller, maybe posting a photo of a sunrise or my latte once a week. Different online habits, no problem, right? Apparently not. About 3 weeks ago, I started noticing Connor making subtle remarks about my Instagram. Like we'd be at dinner, he'd snap a selfie, and if I didn't post it right away, he'd ask why I was holding off. Or he'd point out that I shared a pic of my lunch but didn't mention we ate together. They were small comments, and I didn't think much of them at the time, but now I see the red flags I missed. 2 weeks ago, work got insanely hectic, with late nights that left me barely checking social media, let alone posting. Connor kept mentioning that I hadn't shared any couple photos lately, and I brushed it off, thinking he was just joking. I figured I'd post something when I had time. Then came last Saturday. Connor's buddy, Timothy, threw a birthday bash at his place, a chill gathering of about 30 people in his backyard with drinks and music. I was excited for it, needing a break after my stressful work week. We arrived around 8 p.m., grabbed some drinks and started chatting with everyone. It was fun for the first couple of hours. I caught up with some folks I hadn't seen in a while, and Connor was in his element, snapping pics and posting stories as usual. I thought it was sweet seeing him so comfortable with his friends, all social and carefree. But around 10:30, the vibe shifted. Connor approached me while I was talking to Timothy's girlfriend, Hazel, about her new job, and he seemed off, irritated, fidgeting with his phone, scrolling through Instagram and Facebook with a scowl. I asked if he was okay, and he said he was fine, but his mood said otherwise. About 20 minutes later, he pulled me aside near the backyard fence, where it was quieter. He started questioning why I hadn't been posting about us lately, and when I'd last shared a story featuring him. I was thrown off because, as I explained, work had been overwhelming, and I wasn't posting much of anything. But that only seemed to upset him more. Then he dropped a bombshell that should have been a glaring warning sign. He said real girlfriends are eager to show off their partners, and he was starting to wonder if I was ashamed of him or keeping my options open. I was stunned. This came out of left field, considering how much time we spend together and how intertwined our lives are. I tried explaining that my social media habits don't reflect my feelings for him and that lots of people keep things private online, but he wasn't listening. He kept saying his friends' girlfriends post about them all the time, and I was being secretive and weird. The argument was going nowhere, and I could sense people nearby noticing the tension. Then things spiraled into absolute chaos in a way I still can't fully wrap my head around. Connor decided the best way to make his point was to drag everyone else into it. He marched back to the main party area and loudly announced that the group needed to help settle a debate for us. I trailed behind, horrified, trying to figure out how to stop this train wreck. But Connor was already holding up his phone, telling everyone to check out my Instagram profile to see how I never post about my boyfriend. He scrolled through my recent posts, pointing out photos of my coffee, my dog, a random sunset, a book I was reading, none featuring him. The embarrassment was overwhelming as 30 people stared at my profile while Connor dissected it like he was presenting a case in court. People tried to deflect and change the topic, but he kept going, getting louder and more dramatic about how this proved I was embarrassed of him. Then he said something that made me realize this relationship was likely done. In front of everyone, he looked at me and said I was acting like a fake girlfriend who was ashamed of him. And real girlfriends don't treat their relationships like shameful secrets. His tone was so harsh and accusatory, and in such a public setting, it felt like a punch to the gut. I told him he was being absurd and that we needed to discuss this privately, but he was too far gone. He threw up his hands, announced he was leaving because he wouldn't waste time on someone who acted like he didn't exist, and stormed out. The backyard went dead silent, everyone staring awkwardly. I stayed for another hour, trying to smooth things over and apologizing to Timothy for the drama, but it felt like people were looking at me like I was the issue. A few asked if Connor was okay, or if we fought about social media often, which only made me feel worse, wondering if I'd somehow been inconsiderate without realizing it. When I got home around midnight, I had 17 texts from Connor, angry rants about how I'd humiliated him, accusations that I was probably talking to other guys, which is why I didn't post about us. The messages got increasingly erratic, demanding I post a photo of us right then to prove I wasn't ashamed of him. Exhausted and desperate to stop the fight, at 1 a.m., I posted a picture of us from the party. Within minutes, he commented, "Finally, you stopped hiding me like some dirty secret," which made me want to delete it immediately because it looked like I'd been coerced. I thought that would calm things down, and we'd talk it out the next day. But then Sunday morning, I woke up to a text from Connor's mom, Nancy, and things took a turn that made the party incident seem minor by comparison. First update, holy crap, you guys. The comments on my last post were spot on. And huge thanks to the person who warned that family involvement would make this 10 times worse. You nailed it. So Sunday morning, I woke up to a long text from Nancy that absolutely tore into me. She started by saying she'd seen Connor's Instagram stories from the party and noticed how upset he looked, then saw my post and his comment and wanted to understand what was going on. But then she went completely overboard. She said she'd raised Connor to value relationships where both partners are proud to be together, and she was worried I wasn't taking him seriously. She mentioned that when she was dating Connor's dad, she couldn't wait to show him off to everyone, and real women who love their partners want the world to know. What really stung was when she said she'd noticed I rarely mentioned Connor online and was concerned I was treating him like a casual fling instead of appreciating what a great guy he is. She ended by saying she hoped I'd learn to value her son because good men, like Connor, don't wait around for women who act embarrassed of them. I was floored that his mom was inserting herself into our drama and lecturing me about social media like I was some clueless kid. I sent a screenshot to my best friend, Violet, who called me immediately and was like, "What is wrong with these people?" Before I could even figure out how to respond to Nancy, Connor started blowing up my phone, demanding we talk right away. I was still in my pajamas, sipping coffee, trying to process his mom's message, but he insisted I come to his apartment immediately to hash things out. I told him I needed time to think, but he kept pushing, saying we couldn't leave things unresolved and that he'd been up all night stressed about our fight. He sounded genuinely upset and apologized for losing it at the party, so I agreed to head over around noon. When I got there, Connor launched into a long explanation about why social media matters so much to him. It's how he stays connected with faraway friends and family. He said his college buddies always post about their girlfriends, and when I don't share about us, it makes him feel invisible. He admitted he'd been feeling insecure for weeks, seeing me post about everything but our relationship, and started wondering if I was keeping my options open or planning to dump him. He said the party blow-up happened because he'd been drinking, and all those insecurities came pouring out in the worst way. I tried explaining that my posting habits don't reflect how I feel about him, and that I prefer keeping things private online because constantly sharing feels less authentic to me. I said I'd rather be present in our moments together than staging them for Instagram. But Connor kept circling back to how couples should want to celebrate each other publicly and how my behavior was confusing to his friends. We talked for nearly 2 hours, repeating the same points. Him insisting social media is a normal part of modern relationships, me explaining that forced posting feels fake and uncomfortable. Neither of us was budging, and the frustration was building. Then he brought up his mom's text, saying Nancy was just worried about him and made valid points about how committed couples act. I told him it was wildly inappropriate for his mom to lecture me about Instagram, and that our relationship shouldn't involve his family scrutinizing my online activity. He got defensive, saying Nancy was just looking out for him and that I was overreacting to someone who cares about us. The conversation was going nowhere, and I was starting to see that Connor didn't grasp why his public outburst at the party was so humiliating. I said I needed time to think about whether we could reconcile such different views on privacy and relationships. He panicked, backtracking, saying he didn't want to break up over something stupid and that we could compromise. He suggested I post about us occasionally, and he'd try to be less sensitive about social media. I was considering whether that could work when his phone started buzzing with notifications. He glanced at it, looking uneasy, and said his sister, Erica, wanted to see the Instagram post from Saturday night. Before I could ask why that mattered, he showed me his phone. Erica had shared my post to her story, but not normally. She'd overlaid text saying, "Some girls don't deserve good guys," with eye-rolling emojis, tagging her friends and adding another slide about how some people need to be forced to appreciate their relationships. Erica has thousands of followers, and she was basically publicly shaming me as a bad girlfriend based on one post and whatever Connor had told her. He tried to downplay it, saying she was just being protective and didn't mean anything serious, but I was done. I told him his sister publicly humiliating me was the final straw, and I couldn't handle his family meddling in our drama. He begged me not to make rash decisions and promised to get Erica to delete the story, saying his family just needed time to understand my perspective. But here's what's been gnawing at me since Sunday. When he showed me Erica's story, I noticed it had dozens of replies from people agreeing with her, adding comments about girlfriends who don't value good guys. My photo was being shared and discussed by strangers I'd never meet. I left Connor's place without giving a clear answer about our relationship, but I was leaning toward ending it. His failure to see his family's behavior as a problem made me think this would only get worse. But something happened yesterday that's making me question everything about Connor's motives. Second update first, thank you to everyone who commented on my last update. You were so right that Connor's family's behavior is unhinged, and I should have bolted the moment his mom started lecturing me about being a real woman. The person who called this controlling behavior was dead on. After leaving Connor's place Sunday, emotionally exhausted from our circular 2-hour talk, I decided I needed an outside perspective. I called my older sister, Jasmine, who's across the country, and laid out everything. The party, Nancy's text, Erica's story. Jasmine asked one question that stopped me cold. Has Connor ever been this intense about anything else, or is the social media obsession out of character? Thinking about it, I realized Connor's always cared a lot about appearances, always wanting to hit trendy spots to tag them, caring what his friends thought of me, making comments about how couples should present themselves publicly. I'd brushed it off as him being outgoing, but now I saw a pattern of needing external validation. Monday morning, Connor texted, asking if I'd thought things over and was ready to move forward with a compromise. I was honest, saying our talk made me realize how different our values are around privacy and relationships. He went into damage control, saying he understood I needed space but didn't want me to blow things out of proportion. He insisted every couple argues about social media and that we could fix this if I met him halfway. I told him it wasn't just social media anymore. It was his public humiliation at the party and defending his family's oversteps. I said healthy relationships don't involve partners policing each other's online activity or families publicly shaming someone for not posting enough couple pics. He got defensive, saying I was exaggerating and that his family was just protective because they care about him. He said if I posted about us occasionally, the drama would vanish and we'd be happy again. That just confirmed he didn't see the problem. When I pointed out that his family's behavior was a boundary violation, he said I was being dramatic and that all families get involved sometimes. We talked for over an hour, with him trying to convince me I was overreacting and that we could solve everything if I understood what mattered to him. He kept saying my refusal to post about us caused all the issues. I told him I needed time to think about our long-term compatibility and wasn't ready to change my social media habits. He asked me not to make final decisions while upset about his family. Tuesday morning, I planned to focus on work and get distance from the drama, but around 10 a.m., my coworker Nola texted, asking if I was okay. She'd been at the coffee shop near our office when the barista mentioned a woman asking about me, whether I came in regularly, what I ordered if I seemed happy. The barista found it odd enough to tell Nola since we worked together. I first thought it might be Nancy, but Nola described a young woman with dark hair and flashy jewelry, and I realized it was Erica. The idea of Connor's sister tracking down places I frequent and questioning people about me was chilling. I texted Connor, asking if he knew why Erica was doing this. He called immediately, sounding confused and concerned, and said he'd talk to her. An hour later, he texted, saying it was a misunderstanding. Erica was in the area for work, stopped by the coffee shop she'd seen in my stories, and casually mentioned knowing someone who went there. But that didn't add up, I'd never posted about that coffee shop. My stories are mostly sunsets or my dog. When I called him out, he said Erica must have mixed up the place and it was a coincidence. I told him her showing up and asking about me felt like stalking, and I was uncomfortable with his family's involvement. He said I was jumping to conclusions, and that Erica was just trying to relate to me by checking out places I liked. His defense of her behavior instead of being alarmed showed me this family has wildly different boundaries than I'm okay with. When I said that, he called me paranoid and said his family was just trying to get to know me. Wednesday, things got worse when I got a Facebook friend request from Nancy. I barely use Facebook and hadn't realized they could find me there, but she'd tracked me down. I sent Connor a screenshot, asking why his mom was trying to connect when we'd never met. He said she was just being friendly since our relationship was getting serious. But when I checked her profile, I saw posts about Connor's relationship status, articles about social media and commitment, and vague statuses about young women not valuing good men. It was clear his family saw our relationship as their business to monitor and judge, and Connor was feeding it by sharing our private issues. When I confronted him, he said his family was just worried about his happiness, and that I should be glad they cared enough to get involved. Thursday, I decided to end things because Connor wasn't going to set boundaries with his family and didn't see their actions as problematic. I texted him to meet that evening to discuss where we stood. He called, trying to convince me not to break up over family drama that would calm down once everyone adjusted. He said he loved me, and we could work through this if I gave his family a chance to apologize. But I decided this pattern would only worsen if he couldn't see the issue. I told him I wanted to meet in person to discuss ending things, because I wasn't comfortable dating someone whose family felt entitled to judge my online activity. He begged me to reconsider, promising Nancy and Erica would apologize and we'd set better boundaries. But his failure to immediately call out their behavior showed he didn't get why it was wrong, and that told me everything about what a future with him would be like. So we're meeting tonight, and I'm planning to end it officially, but I'm nervous about how Connor and his family will react to being told no. Final update, I can't believe how much this escalated since my last post. Thank you to everyone who told me to trust my gut and get out. You were so right, and I'm glad I listened to you instead of Connor's manipulation. Thursday night, I met Connor at a public coffee shop downtown to break things off. I chose a neutral spot because, after his family's stalking, I didn't feel safe meeting at our apartments. Connor seemed hopeful at first, saying he was glad I was open to working things out. I immediately clarified that I wasn't there to fix things. I was ending the relationship because his family's behavior showed we have incompatible values about boundaries and respect. His demeanor changed, and he argued I was making a huge mistake over minor misunderstandings that could be resolved. He launched into a speech about how much he loved me and how perfect we were together, except for this one issue. He said his family's involvement was just because they cared, and once they knew me better, the tension would fade. He insisted breaking up over social media drama was absurd and that I was throwing away something great. I explained it wasn't about social media anymore. It was his humiliating outburst at the party, his mom's inappropriate lecture, his sister's terrifying stalking, and his defense of it all instead of being appalled. He got desperate, cycling through apologies, promises, bargaining, and anger. He apologized for not handling his family better and promised stricter boundaries. When I said it was too late, he suggested a break instead of a breakup to give me space. When I refused, he got angry, saying I was being unreasonable about normal family involvement and that most people would be flattered by their interest. The conversation lasted nearly 3 hours, with him insisting I was punishing him for his family's mistakes and that if I posted about us regularly, none of this would have happened. That comment cemented my decision. He was still blaming me for his family's behavior. I told him that was exactly why we couldn't work, and I was done. He panicked, offering to cut contact with his family, but it felt like a desperate ploy, not genuine. When he saw I wasn't budging, he got angry, saying I'd regret throwing away a good relationship and might end up alone because most guys wouldn't tolerate someone who won't compromise on basic expectations. I left feeling relieved but worried about how he and his family would react. That worry was justified because the next few days were absolutely wild. Friday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Connor and frantic texts, starting with apologies and begging me to reconsider, then turning aggressive. He accused me of leading him on for 8 months and said I'd never find someone who loved me as much. By evening, he was sending long messages about how we were meant to be and that I didn't really want to break up. I didn't respond, knowing it would only encourage him. Saturday, I saw Nancy had posted a long Facebook status about young women not understanding commitment and how social media ruins relationships, tagging Connor. His relatives commented in support. Then Erica posted Instagram stories with screenshots of articles about women who don't appreciate good men, adding text about people throwing away love over petty things. They didn't name me, but it was clearly about me, based on Connor's version of events. Saturday afternoon, Connor showed up at my building, buzzing the intercom to talk. I said no through the speaker, and he pleaded for 5 minutes to explain that his family wanted to apologize. I told him showing up uninvited was another boundary violation. He claimed he wasn't crossing lines, just relaying that Nancy and Erica felt bad and wanted to start over. I said their apologies were meaningless since they only came after the breakup, not because they understood their actions were wrong. I threatened to call security, and he left, saying he wasn't giving up on us. Sunday, I blocked Connor on all platforms and his number because his messages felt like harassment. Within an hour, I got an Instagram friend request from a new account with no posts or profile picture, created that day with a random username. I'm sure it was Connor trying to monitor me after being blocked, which was terrifying. Monday, Nola said the woman who'd asked about me at the coffee shop was back, asking about my schedule and mood. It was Erica, still stalking me post-breakup, confirming this family's obsession wouldn't stop. I filed a police report about the stalking. The officer said it wasn't enough for a restraining order yet, but advised documenting everything and changing my routines. Tuesday, I got a call at work from someone claiming to be Connor's aunt, saying she got my number from Nancy and wanted to discuss our situation. I hung up, shocked that his extended family was now involved. Violet pointed out they were likely discussing me in group chats like I was a problem to solve. Wednesday, Connor emailed my work address, begging me to read one last message. He claimed he finally understood why his family's behavior was wrong and had told them to stop contacting me. But contacting me at work after I'd blocked him showed he still didn't get boundaries. I forwarded it to HR and didn't respond. Thursday, Hazel told me Connor was telling their friend group I broke up with him because I was ashamed of our relationship and didn't want to commit, painting himself as the victim. It was infuriating that he was still pushing this narrative. It's been 2 weeks, and his family's social media posts about relationships have stopped, likely because they realized they looked unhinged. Connor hasn't contacted me since the email, and I hope he's accepted it's over. Looking back, I'm shocked I stayed so long after the red flags. The party incident should have ended it, but I kept giving him chances, trying to compromise with someone whose values clashed with mine. To anyone seeing similar red flags, trust your instincts about boundary violations and family enmeshment. When someone shows their needs trump your comfort, believe them and leave. Connor's still single per his very public Instagram, and I pity the next woman dealing with his family's judgment. Thank you all for supporting me through this mess. You helped me stay strong when I doubted myself, and I'm so grateful for this community.